Hello, today we're going to be looking at drawing a difficult diagram, which is the price discrimination 3 diagrams, the inelastic, elastic, and total markets. This is difficult to draw, and particularly in time conditions in an exam, when you're nervous, you want to be able to be really practiced at this and be able to draw it quickly. Now, before you would start this, you would define price discrimination, and it's quite useful to talk about the conditions necessary. A degree of monopoly power is necessary and barriers to entry. You would want to prevent seepage or movement between the elastic and inelastic markets for consumers, and you would also want to have different elasticities in our markets, which we can see here in the example of train tickets, off-peak and on peak train tickets. In the UK, I believe that's just the morning. So if you go to London, for example, in the morning, you will pay more for your train ticket than if you go later on in the morning, say at 11 o'clock. What you want to do first of all is draw 3 horizontal diagrams. You must make sure that you're using a ruler, and you must make sure that it's really clear. First of all, start off your inelastic market. You can start with the highest price at the very top of your y-axis. Your elastic market, you can start with the price, I'd say, maybe a third down on the y-axis, and there you also have different intercepts on your y-axis. If you get those 2 things right, the rest of it becomes a lot easier to draw. First thing you'd want to do is to draw in your MR curves for your individual markets. So here you have an MR curve. Now my MR curve there wasn't quite right. I want to make it halfway between the origin and the intercept for D equals AR. I hope that's about right. And in this market as well, find a point around about halfway. You don't have to measure it. Broadly correct would be right. Now we're going to enable those MR1 and MR2, the marginal revenue in the inelastic and elastic markets. Once we've done that, we want to find the marginal cost. Now, given that price discrimination is the behavior of charging different prices to consumers, not based on the issue of cost. The cost of providing these services is the same in each market. It's based on the fact that we have different elasticities in order to raise overall supernormal profits. So we need a level of marginal cost which will allow it to profit maximize in each market. What we're going to do now, you might see different things going on in different textbooks. Some textbooks make it simpler and just draw a straight line marginal revenue curve. However, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a curve which I think it's better to make it more realistic, I think. And you're going to see something with a kink that looks like that. You are adding MR1 plus MR2 to make an MR3 curve. Now, the reason it kinks is because at any price above P max, I suppose, or the maximum price that they would actually buy for in the off-peak market, you're going to get 0 marginal revenue. MR2 is 0 at any of these price ranges up here, and therefore the MR curve over here is just the MR1 curve. Not important to really understand why that is. You will never explain that in an exam. We're now going to draw in the marginal cost curve, looking something like that. Now, draw it low enough so that you're able to get a reasonable price in both markets. Don't draw it too high. And then once we've done that, we'll be able to rule in our overall amount profit maximizing position for all train tickets. So Q3 is going to be the number of train tickets that the company should sell in total. So maybe that's, say, 100,000 train tickets, for example. Then you'll need a ruler, and you need to rule that level across. What are we ruling across here? We are ruling across marginal cost. The marginal cost that is met when we equate MC equals to MR3. So we're drawing that marginal cost all the way across so that we can get an intersection at each of the points with MR2 and MR1. Now, what will this tell us? This will tell us how much the company should sell in each market. So I've got Q2 here. They should sell Q2 in their off-peak market. And they should also sell Q1 in their peak markets. And hopefully what you will see is that the prices are going to be different in your peak market and your off-peak market, which you can see right there. Great, so we've got Q1, I'll just add that in. Maybe that's, say, 40,000 tickets, for example. Maybe Q2 is 60,000 tickets. And so in total, we sell 100,000 tickets. The Q3 is broken up into Q1 and Q2 in each of the respective inelastic and elastic markets. We then put in the price, P1 and P2. They are our price discriminating prices in each of our markets. And that is enough now to show how they price discriminate. If you want to, you can, and if the question requires it, you can now add profit in. Profit you want a level of average cost which is below the price at each point. So you want your average cost curve to be reasonably low. So I'm going to put my average cost curve in here, ATC. And again, I can rule across. I can take my numbers and go straight up there, and I can rule right across from that point. Now again, you can see why a ruler is really important here, because you've got a lot of lines which are quite close to each other. I can then label that C1 and C2, so I'll put C2 there and C1 over here. And straight away, I can now find the profit that the firm can make in each of its individual sub-markets. So we have a profit of this shaded area here, or P1A1, B1C1 in our inelastic market. I also have a profit here of P2A2, B2, C2 in my elastic market. And my total profit then is just going to be the sum of those two things. The argument for the company is that if they price discriminate, their profit, the profit here and here that we see added together is greater than the profit that would look like that as your normal P1ABC for not price discriminating. So when you price discriminate, you gain more profit in total across both markets than when you do not price discriminate, when you only have one price. Or I could say possibly easier, one price. That would be an easier way of saying it. Great. When you are talking about this, you would then want to go through the steps of understanding what you'd want to do. Number one, you would then firstly say, you'd make reference to the inelastic and elastic markets and why that would be. I would go through the conditions and say why that would be the case. I would then look at I'll label this across. So number one, I'd look at the profit maximizing overall amount, MC equals MR3. Number two, I would then say what is the quantity in each market. So I'd talk about 2. I'd talk about MC equals MR2. 3. MC equals MR1. And then I would talk about 4, the price in each market. So 4, I'm going to have P2 in the off-peak market. 5, I'll talk about P1 in the peak market. And then 6, I'll talk about the profit in the off-peak market. And 7, the profit in the peak market, if that is required by the question. 8 and 9, you could also add, I'll add another X and Y label here, and you may talk about the consumer surplus as well. Consumer surplus, I'll put it in a different color over here. You'll have that consumer surplus area there and a consumer surplus area over here. So you may choose to go further and go 8 and 9 over here. 8, that would be XA1P1 consumer surplus, and 9 would be YA2P2. And you can go through those, and you may make the comment that the impact on the consumer is that particularly in the peak market, you have higher prices and therefore lower consumer surplus. It really does depend on what the question has asked you. If the question asks you the effect on the firm, clearly you want to be talking about profit. If the question asks you the effect on the consumer, you want to be talking about prices, and so therefore drawing in the ATC wouldn't really be necessary. And you could also talk about consumer surplus. So really read the question very carefully. What is it asking you to do? And then base your answer on that. I hope that's helpful, and do spend some time practicing it, because it's not an easy set of diagrams to draw.